Hello, everyone. Recently, I made a video talking about generational differences and how that's becoming an increasingly common and more potent issue in the political scene. Today, I'd like to talk about a topic related to that, which is term limits. So, there's many arguments on both sides, pro and anti-term limits, and specifically today, focusing on term limits for the US Congress. A big argument for not having term limits is that you'll lose people who are effective leaders, who have been in the system and know how to work the system. You may lose a vast pool of wisdom that has been accumulated over several decades. And these are rational reasons to hold. But what I'm going to talk about today is the reason for term limits, which I believe far outweigh the reasons against. So, to start, how long would term limits be? Well, I would propose that you have term limits separate for the House of Representatives and for the Senate. So, I would posit 12 years in each, 6 2-year terms in the House of Representatives, and 2 6-year terms in the Senate, for a total between both chambers of 24 years. Now, 24 years is roughly the length of a generation. So, with that, you would hopefully get a generational transition. So, what problems would having term limits solve? So, to start, you'll have that generational transition. The baton will be passed from generation to generation. And with this, hopefully, the issues of the time that are affecting the current generation in power will be solved by those very people in power. They grew up on the horizon of the modern issues, and now they're dealing with them right then and there. And they're in touch enough to understand the perspective of their seniors, but to also acknowledge the problems being faced by their juniors. And hopefully, the people serving would be people in their 40s to 60s range, a reasonable amount of time to have accumulated sufficient wisdom, but still young enough to comprehend the issues facing young people. The next problem it would solve is it would be keeping out people who are in their 80s from continuing to serve in government. People who have been there for decades. When you look at this future presidential election and you look at the candidates Biden and Trump, one of the major concerns, not only in 2024, but in 2020 and all the way back in 2016, was the age of the candidates. People are concerned, they have reservations of if someone who is near 80 can actually sufficiently do the job, the most stressful job on the planet. They may have wisdom, but they may not all be there, and they may be out of touch. And that's how people feel when it comes to this current election with both Biden and Trump. Whether you like their policies or not, it's good to mention that this age of presidential candidates, which is a representation of government as a whole, so to go back to Congress, the average age is increasing. If you look at the oldest sitting senator, Dianne Feinstein, is 89 years old. She is making policies for people who are in their teens and 20s that really affect them, or younger. She is almost a century out of touch, quite literally almost a century out of touch in terms of making policies for people almost a century younger than her. That is crazy, and it's something that shouldn't be happening. So hopefully term limits would reduce when people are serving. If they get in when they're 40, they get out when they're 64. And that's if they're good enough to stay the whole time. The third point would be the reduction of the establishment, the political establishment on both sides. The political parties have grown into entities that are capable of gatekeeping good candidates who go against the establishment. If someone is 40, or even younger, if someone's 30 and they really want to run and they have good ideas and they've led a successful business and they were a lawyer and they have the qualifications and they're young enough to see where we're headed, problems we're currently facing, like what to do about AI or microplastics, things that the older generations can't even comprehend, like cryptocurrencies. Someone who says these are a problem. Either they're good or bad, but they need to be dealt with one way or another. I would like to get in and change that. If they have views that go against the established parties, they get gatekept because the establishment is made up of people who have been in government for years. They've made it a career to be a politician. They've been there for 60 years, and their brothers involved, and their sisters involved, and their kids are involved, and you have families. Look at the Clinton family and the Bush family. Almost aristocracies of the American government, which is supposed to be a democracy, but seems to be increasingly less so. So, with hope, this would reduce the amount of corruption, the amount of entrenchment that the establishment has because, as Trump said in 2016, drain the swamp. Rushing water doesn't become stagnant. If you are constantly churning people over every 24 years, hopefully you will not get this pretty much entrenched cancer that is the establishment that has just sat there and gatekeeps and cannot be thrown into remission through just electing new people because they have the opportunity to become part of that system. So why not benefit? The fourth reason, and the final one I had, is it would help reduce the constant fight for re-election. Many of our politicians do basically nothing or just enough to get reelected. Not enough to make waves, not enough to make real change, but enough to support their base enough to keep getting reelected for decades and decades. Because people know their name, they're relevant. So as long as they don't make waves, they won't get ousted. They won't get primaried. The establishment will make sure they won't get primaried, but they will if they go against them. And what that does is that reduces real change. That's why people like Trump and Bernie were so popular, is because they said this whole system needs to change. I want to get in there and shake everything up. That's why Trump was so popular, is because he ran on the I'm not establishment platform. He said, I want to shake things up. I'm going to get in there and I'm going to drain the swamp. That was his whole platform. And people loved it. And people still love it because they see that this political system is not representing the people anymore. It's representing themselves and their own interests. What you want is you want people to serve their time for 24 years and not be constantly worried about getting elected for decades. So hopefully they say, my time's limited anyways. I'm going to actually do what I can while I'm here. Congress is an institution that is meant to represent the people. They should be civil servants, not celebrities. We have made them essentially celebrities, lifelong celebrities who make millions of dollars off the system. Every congressman comes out a millionaire, which is not right. Congress was meant to be something where you served, you sacrificed to go to DC, you sacrificed your career, you put it on hold, you put your aspirations on hold to serve your people out of the goodness of your heart. And that is no longer the case. All these people get is benefit. It's gotten to the point where being a politician is quite literally a career path. You become a politician and you never leave. It's not a service. It's a job. It's something that desperately needs change, and term limits would be a great step in the right direction. And the push for this has to come from the people, because the people who will be affected by this change are not incentivized to make it. So it relies on us, the people, to push for politicians to add term limits. And now that you've heard what I think, please tell me what you think down in the comments below.